Right, now we're on to step 2 for the bass lines assignment. In step 1, we wrote 2 bass lines for that 1-5-6-4 progression and 1 bass line for the reggae chord progression. And by the way, if you want to hear these together, and this will kind of show you why I wanted you to line them up in horizontal rows like this. First of all, go over to this master track and click on this stop. That's the master stop, and that will stop any of these arrows from triggering, right? So if you've got multiple ones that are highlighted ready to play, when you push play, like all those ones will play at the same time. It would be a big mess. But if you just want to hear like a certain row, like if I wanted to hear this chord progression with this bass line, if they're in a horizontal row, I can trigger them both at the same time by pushing the play button at the end here, right? Okay. And then if I wanted to switch the bass line, I could just trigger. Hang on. Let's try that again. So that's my roots and fifths. I know these are pretty boring bass lines right now, but hang with me. You gotta muscle through this basic stuff before you get into the fancy stuff, right? Um, and we'll find out the fancy stuff really is based on the basic stuff. So that's those two. If you wanted to hear your reggae, part that you wrote, let me let me real quick finish up a cool reggae part. Let's do something like that. Not going to be too picky. So if we wanted to hear those two together, sounds good. Okay, so this next step, we're going to just kind of go a little bit further and try some of these other ideas. So we need to create a walking bass line for the 1-5-6-4 progression, four notes per chord. We're going to rename it walking, and then we're going to create a new MIDI bass line for the reggae chord progression with rhythmic variation and some passing tones. So it's going to have some walking elements to it. It's going to have some roots and fifths, and it's going to have some rhythmic variation. So a little bit of all the above. Let's do the walking line first. So let me come back to my 1-5-6-4, and I'm actually going to do that same trick again, except for I'm going to copy the roots and fifths chord progression. So push Command C, and then I'm going to come down here and push Command V, and I'm going to change this name to walking. Okay, and then this bass line's still the same as my roots and fifths. So I'm going to switch to my arrow tool. B again is the shortcut to do that. Select all these notes, change my grid. Instead of being 1/2, we're going to be 1/4 now, so we get 4 notes per measure. And then just grab any one of these notes and tuck it back, and they'll all go back to fourths. And then really all we got to do is just put a single note in between each of these notes that helps kind of connect them. Some of these jumps are kind of big, and so the whole point of kind of these passing tones is to choose one of these notes in between that will help connect those, right? And it's a little bit of trial and error in the beginning. I think it takes a while to know like which notes to choose. I can kind of almost just do it without even thinking about it at this point, but I'm going to show you just kind of, I guess, the random approach, and then show you how to make some changes to it. So you can see I kind of just plug those in to make a nice little walking line. It should kind of look like you're going up a mountains and then coming down, and some nice smooth, some changes in direction, but nothing too drastically weird. I mean, the whole idea is to help smooth out that bass line, right? So um, a couple of maybe sticky spots, right? Or spots where you're maybe not sure what to do. This note right here, I'm coming up and I land on a G, and then my next note is going to be a G. So it's like, I'm already there. Like I could play G again, but then that would be G 3 times in a row. So I just chose to keep walking up. I could have stepped down there too and come back up that way too. It's totally up to you. And what I really recommend that you do is once you get a line in there, then you need to like listen to it, right? So let's come up and cue up our walking part. So I want to hear, I'm gonna master stop everything, and I want to hear this chord progression with this bass part, and I'm gonna hit stop just so they both cue up at the same time. So okay. And some might, stick out weird. And so you might want to try if that sounded not right, then maybe move it down one, right? Whoops, one, right? And that sounds weird too. Let's go down. Cool. And you can move some of these around, and just it doesn't matter which one you choose, but some are going to work better than others. And I think the best way to decide is just really listen carefully and um, pay attention. If like that note's bothering you, then come back and move it down one and see if it sounds better there. And move them around that way. And don't change your roots, of course. Leave those there. But just change your passing tones around and get a nice walking line happening. And that's the first one. Okay, and then the second one is we need to do another reggae one, and it's kind of going to have all the above in it. So it's going to have roots and fifths, and it's going to have some rhythmic variation, and it's going to have some passing tones. So if you wanted to, you could start out with your original reggae bass line that you wrote in the last step. So we can copy that and paste that down here. And then you can just add some passing tones to this. That could be a good thing. Or you could start from scratch and do a fresh start from it. Either way, I think could be fine. We got to name this one Reggae Walk. So let's rename this. Okay. And like I say, just adding some passing notes. Again, I'm not going to probably do this one all live for you, but just to give you an idea about how I build that. Um, don't overdo it. Maybe just pick two spots where you want to add some walking notes, right? Like maybe here, like kind of walk into that D a little bit better, right? So maybe I'll add that and that, something like that. So that's a cool walk. And then maybe something at the end that kind of helps us get back to the A. Really nice. Give myself some room to work here. I'll do like D. Let's do D, C, B. Just like that. And then that kind of walks us into that A a little bit better. Another thing that I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head, maybe it'd be cool, like we get to this way high spot, and then if we kind of jump off a cliff a little bit and go down low to the F, right? So that's our high fifth, and this would be our low fifth, and then we could walk up into the A. That could be a cool thing to do also. So experiment around. Let's see what this one sounds like. I'm curious now. Do a master stop on everything. Cue up my reggae on that one. And then push play. Cool. That one's kind of bugging me. Try that. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Okay, so get to work. Our next step, we're going to be kind of going over these examples that I have a little bit more clearly, and then I'm going to give you some advice on writing bass lines for your own two chord progressions. See you then.